Mr. City Clerk, are we all set to begin? Thank you very much. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the director's hearing of Thursday, July 28th, 2022. I'm Peter Gilley. I'm the Community Development Director, and I'm the hearing officer for this meeting. I want to go over a little bit of logistics first. Mr. Clerk, can you tell me how many speakers we have for agenda items 4, 5, and 6?
I have one speaker card for item number 4, and for 5 and 6, I do not have any speaker cards.
Okay. To allow the applicants for items 4, 5, and 6 to be able to, clearly item number 3 is going to have a lot of speakers and is going to take a significant amount of time. I'm going to reorder the agenda to move item number 3 to the end solely for the purpose of allowing the applicants for items 4, 5, and 6 to be able to complete their business without having to wait for the entirety of item number 3 to be completed. So I'm going to be doing that. The process for each item is there will be a staff presentation. The applicant will be asked if they have anything they want to add. We will then open the public hearing. Those who have provided a speaker card to the clerk will be called up. And I do want to note that this is supposed to be an impartial public hearing, so that I would ask all parties, whichever side of the issue you are on, to respect the speakers regardless of their position. There should not be clapping of support for speakers you agree with. There should not be any type of comments or jeers for speakers that you do not agree with. Would ask that you respect that policy. Mr. City Clerk, how many speaker cards are there for item number 3?
We've got 10 speaker cards so far. Just as a quick reminder, if you are attending virtually and you would like to provide public comment, please use the chat function to message us the specific item number that you would like to speak on. So currently we have 9 speaker cards for item number 3.
Okay. If the speaker cards, if the number of speakers for item number 3 stay under 12, we will keep it at the 3 minutes for each speaker. If it goes over 12, we will start to talk about reducing the total amount of time. My preference is to be able to allow each speaker the maximum amount of time. So let's get started. The first item is public communications. This is the time set aside during the hearing for members of the public wishing to address the hearing officer on planning-related business other than scheduled agenda items. Are there any public communications?
No public communications received.
Okay. Move on to the consent item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from June 23rd. Are there any public comments on that item?
There are no public comments on the meeting minutes.
Great. So I will approve the minutes as proposed. We'll move to the first of the formal items. This is agenda item number 2, project 15305. Staff presentation, please.
Yes, thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is the Jennings Residence. This is an administrative coastal development permit for a new single-family residence with an attached ADU and garage. The subject site's located in the Pierpont community and currently contains an existing 2-story single-family residence. The proposed project includes the demolition of the existing 2-story house with the construction of a new 4,100 square foot 2-story single-family residence containing an attached 257 square foot JADU and a 535 square foot garage. Currently, the house is Currently, the houses with JADUs in the coastal zone are permitted with a coastal development permit, which has been included in the scope of work. Here are the floor plans to the project, including the location of the JADU on the first floor. And here are the elevations of the two-story residence. These are the development standards of the R16 Pierpont Keys tract for waterfront lots. The proposed project meets all of the development standards from setbacks, height, lot coverage, parking, and square footage for the JADU. The recommendation is that the director approve the administrative coastal development permit as conditioned. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present, and would they like to speak?
If you are an applicant and present online, please use the raise hand function to identify yourself. Okay, I do see a Sean Trujillo. Sean, I'm going to go ahead and allow yourself to unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And just to confirm, are you here on item number 2, the Jennings Residence?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm the architect on the project here on behalf of Garrett Jennings, the property owner.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to the record?
I'm just here in case there's specific questions on the project. I'm more than happy to answer anything that you guys might have questions on.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, are there any other speakers?
No other public comments at this time.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. Seeing as this project complies with all regulations, approve the administrative coastal development permit as conditioned by staff. And that concludes item number 2. We're going to skip agenda item number 3 and jump to item number 4, project 15460. Staff presentation, please.
Thank you, Director Gilly. This item is a request for an alcohol use permit. It's for a Type 47 license, which is an on-sale general eating place, to allow indoor sports and recreation use for a new restaurant, the Applicant Tavern. Next slide, please. This new venue is located on the northeast corner of Olivas Park Drive and Bunsen Avenue. The surrounding uses adjacent to the property include commercial and light industrial, and the Ventura Golf Course to the south. Next slide. The alcohol use permit authorizes the sale of alcohol from the hours of 11 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. daily. Alcohol service is not intended to be the main focus of the restaurant, but it's an added amenity to the patrons visiting the establishment. A full menu of food selections will be available at all hours of operation. Next slide. In addition to the alcohol use permit, the applicant is requesting a use permit for indoor sports and recreation. Applicant Tavern will offer a unique sport to the Ventura County area in the form of axe throwing. Coupling axe throwing with full-service food and drink menu will be offering a new and a different form of entertainment that is unique to the area. Next slide. In addition to the axe throwing, the establishment will contain dart throwing and escape rooms, which are real-life physical adventure games in which people are locked in rooms with other participants, and they use elements of the room to solve a series of puzzles and escape the room within a set time limit. Next slide. Conditions included in the resolutions include the standard alcohol use permit conditions, including hours of operation and training requirements for employees serving alcohol. Conditions for the indoor recreational use include the applicant's responsibility for monitoring and controlling the premise and the prohibition of outdoor storage. Next slide. Staff is recommending the director approve the alcohol use permit and the use permit as conditioned, and that concludes my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present, and would they like to add anything?
Mr. Director, we have Lynn here on behalf of Accent Ale. She is available for questions.
And she stated she doesn't have a presentation. She's only here if we have questions.
I'm just here to answer questions.
Okay.
We've been a liquor license holder in this county since 1991.
Okay. Are there any other speakers on this item?
No other speakers on this item.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Knowing that these type of alcohol permits are reviewed by the police department as well, approving the alcohol use permit and the use permit as conditioned based on the staff recommendation. Thank you very much. That concludes item number 4. And we'll move on to item number 5, project 15462.
Thank you, Director Gilly. This request is for an administrative coastal development permit for a modification and a 189 square foot addition to an existing single-family residence. Next slide. The project site is located on the north side of Brockton Lane within the Pierpont community. Next slide. The surrounding area is described as a unique beach-oriented residential area. The zoning for the parcel is R1B, that's single-family residential beach zone, and consists of single-family residence on small lots. Next slide. In 1989, an administrative coastal development permit for a 1,683 square foot, 2-story single-family residence was approved. The changes proposed to the existing single-family residence include a 126 square foot balcony addition to the second floor of the front of the existing residence and the enclosure of an existing 63 square foot second floor balcony attached to the rear of the residence. Next slide. The proposed modifications are consistent with the purposes and requirements of the comprehensive plan and is compliant with all the applicable standards of the single-family beach zone. Next slide. The massing of the project is not substantially unique or different from the existing residence, and when compared to the rest of the neighborhood, and the development would not adversely impact the area of privacy or open areas of the adjacent residential development along Brockton Lane. Next slide. Staff is recommending the director approve the administrative coastal development permit as conditioned. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present, and would they like to speak? Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public, are there any public speakers on this item?
No public speakers on item number 5.
Okay. Seeing as this project also complies with all regulations and am approving the administrative coastal development permit as conditioned by staff. That concludes item number 5. Move on to item number 6, project 22-0056. Staff presentation, please.
Thank you, Director Gilly. The next item on tonight's agenda is a request for an alcohol use permit for Midtown Wines. Next slide, please. The project site is located at 981 East Main Street and is within an existing 1,196 square foot commercial tenant space. The surrounding uses adjacent to the property include commercial to the east and west and residential uses to the north and south. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting an alcohol use permit for a Type 20 license, which authorizes the sale of beer and wine for off-site consumption. The proposed hours of operation are from 11 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. As part of the review process, the Ventura Police Department investigated the alcohol license type and location and proposed operating plan and has recommended approval, finding that there is no indication the proposed alcoholic beverage establishment will significantly add to crime rate or contribute to disproportionate numbers of police service calls. Next slide, please. With that, staff recommends approval of the proposed alcohol use permit with the associated conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present?
We have Mr. Jason Herber available virtual. He is has no presentation and nothing to add, but he is available online if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any public speakers?
We have no public speakers on item number 6.
Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. Again, like with the prior alcohol use permit, and as mentioned by staff, all these alcohol use permits are reviewed by our police department, and based on the recommendation, I'm comfortable approving the alcohol use permit as conditioned. That concludes item number 6. Want to thank all the people here for item number 3 for allowing those other items to be able to be concluded. We will now move to item number 3. Would like to note, if you are here and you entered a little late, if you want to speak on this item, please come up to the clerk and fill out a speaker card. Mr. City Clerk, at this point, how many speaker cards do we have?
We are up to 11.
11, okay. We're going to have a staff presentation, then the applicant's presentation, and then we will go into public comment. Go ahead.
Thank you. This request is for a sign variance for an existing building. The project site is located at 2151 Alessandro Drive, northwest of the Seaward Alessandro Drive intersection and north of US Highway 101. Nearby uses include the City of Ventura Fire Training Center, an office building, and gas station. In February of 2019, the Design Review Committee approved a formal design review of a new sign program and a sign variance at this location. This approval allowed for 6 wall-mounted signs and 1 monument sign to be located on the site for a total of 7 signs. The sign variance increased the total maximum allowed signage area from 40 square feet to 122 square feet, a difference of 82 square feet. This request proposes to replace an existing 21 square foot halo lit wall sign with a 56 square foot halo lit channel letter wall sign for the west wing of the existing building mounted along the south elevation. The proposed sign will mimic the existing wall sign on the east wing in size and area that spells out the word Scientology. This proposed sign will face south and will provide building identification along US Highway 101. The proposed change is circled in green as shown on the screen and shows the difference between the approved signage, which is the top graphic, and the proposed signage, which is the middle graphic, for the west wing of the building. The number of signs will not change and will remain at a total of 7, which includes the existing monument sign. The only proposed change is to replace the existing 21 square foot wall sign, which is a logo sign, highlighted in green in the top graphic, that was approved in 2019, with a 56 square foot wall sign as highlighted in green in the middle graphic that spells out the word Scientology. Next. The sign regulations for the professional office zoning district, which this site is located in, has a maximum area of 40 square feet for all signage on a site. The existing approved sign program has a maximum area of 122 square feet. This request will bring the total area of wall-mounted signage for the entire site to 157 square feet, which exceeds the previously approved sign variance for the entire site by 35 square feet. After evaluation, this request appears reasonable given that the total sign area of 157 square feet seems appropriate for a 50,000 plus square foot building for signage to be visible, and the proposed sign is appropriate in scale, size, and location. Given this, staff supports this request for the reasons as shown here on the screen. Next. Given the aforementioned, staff recommends to the director to approve the sign variance as conditioned. Thus concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. If the applicant has a presentation, could you, yes, come forward.
California. There are really 2 reasons why we feel we need to make this change or proposing this change. One is basically the sign's purpose. We wanted to identify what the function of the building is. That's a religious institution within the community. We certainly wanted to make sure that we're establishing the primary use of the building, leaving no ambiguity. We wanted to present no hazardous conditions or visibility obstructions, so we placed this sign up on the parapet. The other thing that I think is very important, this type of building, which is a very modern aesthetic, really has a strong sensibility of symmetry. And if you look at the signage program that we had previously, there's a distinctive off-balance. We had a symbol of the church on one side and the word Scientology on the other. And as it stands today, it appears off balance. It appears odd. So in order to reinforce the architecture, we felt that placing Scientology spelt out similarly to the East Wing was an appropriate means of conveying that symmetry. I would like to note that the previous signage program for the former owners of the building was 400 square feet. And we are asking for just a little bit above what we were granted a couple years ago. At 122, we're asking for an additional 35 square feet. And this is well below 40% or less than what was previously on that building. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I can get into the technical details about lighting if needed.
I may have questions after the public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Hi,
So with the applicant?
I am also with
Okay.
as the applicant. I also have a PowerPoint presentation. Good evening. My name is Bobby Grantham. I'm the Public Affairs Director at the Church of Scientology of Ventura. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak on behalf of my staff and parishioners of the church. Mr. Connolly spoke to you of the technical, architectural, and aesthetic reasons that support our application. I will give you an overview of why it's important for us to have adequate signage. This is our Church of Scientology of Ventura. We dedicated our new church on February 22nd, 2020. Its opening was the culmination of the hard work and contributions of the Scientology community in Ventura. Less than a month after we opened, the pandemic took hold, and like others, we had to close our doors. But we did not stay inactive. Our mother church created a resource center to provide information about what people can do to stay safe and well. We worked on the principle that an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. Our church also printed 7.5 million copies of educational booklets. We organized our volunteer ministers. Our volunteer ministers placed thousands of booklets in essential businesses, as well as first responders, community groups, and neighbors, free of charge. We were happy to be able to do this during the pandemic. Our volunteers are experienced in dealing with disasters. During the Thomas Fire, our volunteers were there doing whatever was needed to help. Working in collaboration with volunteer organizations active in disasters, VOAD, and many other community partners. We were there ready to help during the Montecito mudslides. Teams assisted on the cleanups. We were also volunteering at the Woolsey Fire, cleaning up debris, doing whatever is needed, including working at the food banks to feed victims and first responders. The pandemic created much hardship on families, so we dispatched our volunteers to the county fairgrounds food bank. Our church has a women's auxiliary, and we did a toy drive for the Friends of Field Workers for hundreds of children. Protecting the environment is important to all of us, especially our beautiful coast. That's why the Way to Happiness Ventura chapter members have carried on with their monthly beach cleanups. As soon as we could resume indoor activities, we reopened our doors to the community. Our church was built to provide facilities for all types of community meetings. For example, a month ago, on United Nations International Day Against Drugs, Ventura County Sheriff Bill Ayub was our guest speaker. He gave us an update on the current drug scene in Ventura County and what can be done about it. We know that religions working together make a strong community, so we also host interfaith events. So that is a short overview of what we do to uplift our community. That brings us back to what we are here for today. We want our church to be visible so anyone can easily find it and come in, join in our community programs, and get the help they need. Our parishioners want to be able to direct friends and family to the church. We take heart our role in this community. We are proud of our building and take excellent care of our property inside and out. In preparation for this hearing, I visited the neighborhood to see the impact of our signage. Within a 300-foot distance from our property line, there is no impact. We took photos to show that our sign is an enhancement to our building with no negative impact. Here are several other views from across the freeway. And this is a view from the Marriott Hotel toward our church. I personally went there and confirmed that there is no impact. The sign is well designed with beautiful lighting that actually enhances the building. The light is soft and elegant. As for the drivers on the freeway, it will be much safer and easier for them to find us. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the Ventura Scientologists, and we appreciate your support of our request.
Before we go to public comment, can I ask the architect a question? What's the height of the letters of the primary signs?
Of the Scientology word,
Yes,
24 inches.
24 inches, okay.
We had originally proposed 28 inches, I believe. And the council at the time had us reduce it down to 24 inches, which is what's in place today.
So I'm looking at, let's see, sheet. Let me blow it up. Sheet VA3. The first detail for the enlarged elevation is this the detail of the sign facing the freeway? It has a label of S4 and it also
Yes.
has one. This says the height is 2 foot 4 inches.
Right, and the city's approval of the signage package had us reduce it to 24 inches.
Okay,
So this is actually an error on the drawing,
okay.
but the signage in place is 24 inches, and we would propose matching that height.
Okay, and a question for staff, were the calculations on area based on what's shown in the plan or based on a calculation that the height of the letters were 24 inches?
The calculation was based on the area provided in the plan, so the 2 feet 4 inches by the 24, but the 2 feet 4 inches by 24 feet.
Does that follow that if those are 24 inches tall, then the amount of this variance is actually smaller?
So it follows the height of 2 feet 4 inches divided by the 24 feet, so that would be, technically you would be correct.
48 square feet.
Except if you proportionally change it, the width would actually narrow a tad bit as well, okay?
Right.
And so the sign that is currently up is not 2 foot 4 inches tall, they're 24 inches.
Correct.
Okay. Can you, while we're going through public comment, can you do the best you can to calculate what you think that's going to do to the amount of square footage this variance is requesting? Because I believe it's going to reduce it.
Yes, it will. I can.
Okay.
I have the shop drawings for the signs.
Yeah.
So I can calculate that for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So As you're getting these public comments, how many are we up to?
Yes, we are currently up to 13 with these two.
And do we have any, and are these including the ones on hybrid?
Sorry?
Is this
We have no
person?
virtual speakers, all in person. We did just receive one virtual speaker,
Okay, so 14 total.
so 14 total.
I'm going to keep it at 3 minutes. I would ask that if your comments, if someone else has conveyed your comments, would ask that you note that. It would allow us to move along to reach a conclusion if you didn't use your whole 3 minutes, but you have the right to if you choose to. And with that, Mr. City Clerk, can you call up the public speakers?
Sure, the first speaker is Judy Tosick, followed by Lucille Mosier. Is this just a written comment, Judy?
Good evening. I am not Judy Taussig. I am Judy Taussig's husband, namely John Taussig. And so I believe it might have just been a mistake. And
Sure.
yes. All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking this morning. My name's John Taussig. I'm speaking as really just kind of a regular parishioner of this fairly new church in the area, and giving you an idea of why this is important to me, this signage. My wife and I lived in Los Angeles for about 45 years before we moved up here a couple of years ago. And while in Los Angeles, I practiced immigration law and took a great deal of satisfaction about being able to help deserving people make this country their new home. And also for a few years, I served as the president of a human rights organization, Youth for Human Rights, in Los Angeles. Youth for Human Rights is an organization with chapters all over the world, teaching human rights in some 18 different languages. And every year, most every year, there's a meeting in the United Nations where young people from all over the world come and exchange their ideas about human rights and how human rights can be made more of a reality in the world. So this is something that's important to me. Now, while in Los Angeles, my wife and I often drove up here to Ventura and gave our dogs a chance to go running on the beach. And then when I retired from law practice, a couple of years ago, we moved up here, and we love Ventura and this area. We love it for the open space, for the nice clean air, and most of all, we love the people here. The people are friendly, they greet you, they smile at you when you pass them on a sidewalk, and no horns. You never hear a car horn here in Ventura. This is something that actually gave us a little bit of a culture shock. Judy and I are proud members now of the Church of Scientology of Ventura, and with the church we have continued to support human rights and other community outreach activities. We like to help the church be a place that can be a home for everybody in the community, and we like having a sign that serves as a welcoming beacon for anyone who might like to come in. And I'd like to thank the director here for having the building sign on the agenda and for the recommendation of the approval. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lucille Mosier, followed by Colin Gray.
Hello, my name is Lucille Mosier. I am a tennis coach. My family and I first moved to Ventura in 1960. We have been beachfront residents just down the road, 6 miles from the new Church of Scientology in Ventura. I am one of many Scientologists who worked to raise the funds to open our new church for the benefit of all Ventura County residents. Although the sign is currently on the side of the building, visible from one side of the freeway, it can be difficult to locate from street level, and a second sign would handle that. Our church offers community events and services to bring residents and friends together with the purpose of offering help to all. In fact, this weekend we'll be celebrating the United Nations International Day of Friendship with a Way to Happiness open house, and we welcome everyone from 1 to 3 p.m. I also will be conducting introductory seminars for the Truth About Drugs Foundation on Wednesday evenings at the church, and we would love to have the community participate in that as well. So I want to thank you very much for considering approval of our second sign. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Colin Gray, followed by Raul Martinez.
Hi, which microphone, doesn't matter?
It doesn't
Anyway,
matter. Both of
stereo, okay. I'm a 10-year Ventura resident, and I think the sign as it is perfectly fine. I think it's big enough. I was driving past it yesterday, and I wouldn't have, if it was in the auto zone, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I also, just to make sure everybody knows where I'm coming from, if it was a Baptist sign, I'd also have issue with it being bigger. I think one of the issues that I have is that it's right in the darker area of the freeway, and I think we'll start getting called Scientology City, and rather than being the beautiful name San Bonaventura. I would also like to know, the architect mentioned that the last the last business that was there had a sign. I'd like to know if that was illuminated, because this one is, and it really is bright at night and perfectly easy to see. And also, there's a difference between this kind of day and age and days of yore. We have Google Maps to show us the way. It is not difficult to find. And so also I'd like to know, how public is the building? There's been comparisons with the Kaiser building, the Kaiser Permanente building, which is, I happen to like it. I think it's an exciting piece of architecture, and it was purpose-built very generously by the Kaiser organization. And it is a public building. Anybody can walk in there. That's where my doctor is, so I go there too. And I'm just wondering, how public is this building going to be? Can people go and rent spaces there? And also, I'm curious, I just got back from Italy, and it was wonderful to walk into churches and to see Fra Angelicos and other wonderful pieces of art. I'm wondering, is there that kind of accommodation for people to come into this building to actually see wonderful pieces of art? And so I think that's about it. As I said, I wouldn't be bothered if it was in the auto zone. That's a commercial space, lots of bright lights, lots of signage everywhere. I think I just don't want San Bonaventura to be called the city of Scientology or Scientology City. I'm sure there's some people here that would love that. But I think, and as I said, if it was Baptist City or Roman Catholic City, I wouldn't like that either. So, okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, our next speaker is Raul Martinez, followed by Robert Guthrie.
Hello, my name is Raul Martinez. I have lived in Ventura since 1986. I have been a member of the Church of Scientology ever since. My wife, as well as several members of my family, are also Scientologists. When the building was built or renovated in 2020 and had its grand opening, it had 2 Scientology signs. Because of the large size of the building, I thought it was, what a great idea. It made the building look symmetrical, well-balanced. It was quite a sight to see. I was really disappointed when the sign was removed. The building looks off a little bit. I think it adds to the aesthetics of the area. rather than do the opposite. So I would like to see the second sign be put up. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Robert Guthrie, followed by Jonathan Jones.
Axe, ale, and ow. That was for item 4. Good evening. I'm surprised this variance request is even being considered, let alone supported by staff. You've heard and hopefully read many good reasons to deny it. The applicant has stated a need that, in my opinion, is fabricated nonsense. And this is before I heard the argument for symmetry. You don't achieve symmetry in a building with signage. You achieve it with architectural elements. If you wanted symmetry in that building, you have a single sign in the center of the U-shaped portion. No one is going to try and find this building by driving through Ventura looking for a big sign. Imagine if GPS or Google Maps used that logic. It might go something like this. While driving through Ventura, look either left or right, depending on your direction, for big signs on the side of the building. When you see them, you've gone too far. Take the next exit and backtrack to seaward. When you eventually arrive at the building on Alessandro and you're looking for the entrance, you'll see a 56 square foot oversized wall sign on the east end of the building, a monument sign on the east end of the building, and an entrance sign over the entrance also on the east end of the building. It's pretty clear the entrance is on the east end. So if you miss all these rather obvious clues and continue driving west on Alessandro, having another overly large sign on the non-entrance side is only going to confuse you more. Another justification statement is this only adds 35 square feet of signage, and I did all this based on what was in the plans, not on the 24-inch measurement. However, the 56 square foot sign will be replaced by a 21 square foot stylized logo that looks as much as an architectural element as it does a sign. The new sign is comprised of 28-inch tall backlit block letters, and it's clearly in a different category than a stylized logo sign. The request for a variance is not a request for directional clarity, but it is a desire for more advertising. It's not warranted. I know these buildings aren't office buildings, but you certainly don't see much larger buildings like Walmart, Vons, and Lowe's with 2 marquee signs. I hope you will decide this request for variance is unwarranted and deny it.
Jonathan Jones, followed by Wendy Souter.
Hello. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Jonathan Jones, and I have been living in Ventura for 46 years. I'm a local business owner, and I gotta say, my life has been changed by the ability to use Scientology tools in my life. Of course, this matter is simple. Any church, any nonprofit, any organization or company operating in our community should be given equal opportunity to promote their services. The signage proposed for our church is smaller than the previous tenants. I am in support of keeping civil and human rights alive in our community and approving the signage for the Church of Scientology. Thank you.
Wendy Souter, followed by Amy Sherry.
Good evening. I'm speaking tonight against allowing the sign variance. One very significant variance has already been given, and there is absolutely no need for any additional huge lighted sign on this building. Why would one building need 2 marquee signs? Ventura has ordinances for a reason. One of the requirements for approving a variance is to enhance the unique character and visual appearance of the city. The existing backlit signs do not enhance the city. The rationale given to allow the variance is the applicant is requesting an increase of 35 square feet. This is a bit deceptive because in reality, the total of the signs would be 157 square feet, nearly 4 times what is allowed by the ordinance. The last thing we want to see when looking up at our city from the beach are a pair of glowing in-your-face signs. Residents have already been negatively impacted by the sign at the Auto Mall. Please don't let this happen again. Staff must enforce the very well-written ordinances and grant variances only when there is a compelling reason to do so. This request is not one of them. Please deny this. Thank you.
Amy Sherry, followed by Natalie Bruton.
Hi, Director. Thank you. I'm not going to stand here and recite my charity work from years gone by. It's not about good works. A lot of businesses do good works. This is about a sign variance on top of another sign variance. Hospitals, freeway on and off ramps, maybe a roadside hotel, they need large signage. Yet somehow they manage with the standardized options and the size requirements allowed. The existing signs are more than adequate. There is no public safety issue as stated. There's no need to balance the building. The only people in favor that I know of are church members. The sign does nothing for wayfinding. I also noticed on the plans, which wasn't brought up here, there's another sign over the entrance. I don't know why that wasn't brought up, but it's not. Is that going to be a future variance? Raising revenue by granting unreasonable variance is just not acceptable. Ventura may be open for business, but it should not have to sell its soul to get there. It's more than just saving the unique character of our community, preserving the visual quality we all love, our night sky from light pollution. It's about doing what's right. It's about doing what is right for Ventura. It's about doing what the sign ordinance calls for. You have over 300 letters from our community urging you to deny this variance for a multitude of excellent, valid reasons. Please read those into the record. I hope this public hearing isn't a charade and you seriously take our recommendation to deny this sign variance. Thank you.
Natalie Bruton, followed by Stephen Quat.
Good evening. Uh-oh, I've lost my, give me 1 second here. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Gilly and city staff. My name is Natalie Bruton, long life resident of Ventura County, living in Ventura for over 40 years. Our city's codes and guidelines were developed by reasonable Ventura citizens, professionals in their respective industries. These codes, specifications, and guidelines were developed to keep the feel and flavor of our city consistent to its location. Giving variances goes against the reason codes and guidelines exist. The location of this building does not require the type of signage being requested. My husband, Eric Bruton, was part of the construction team that originally built this building and also the Marriott building, while working for the architecture firm McEwen, Gerwin, and Partners. Having that connection, we have watched this building over the years. Never once has any owner or tenant required the signage that is so obtrusive and destructive to the overall aesthetic of the building and the surrounding area. A building is designed with appropriate signage in mind. It is not intended to be a giant billboard of advertisement. There have been many detailed public comments this evening and letters regarding why this variance should not be granted. Please take the time to seriously review each of the residents' concerns. The reasonings for this increased signage and added light pollution do not add up. Please, for the sake of our city, do not give these variances. Please listen to the citizens that you are all here to represent. Thank you very much.
Stephen Quat, followed by Larry Krog.
My name is Stephen Quat. I'm a resident of Ventura, live right down the street here. We have a community plan, a general plan, We have a community-specific plan. The reason why we have them, we have meetings, we go over, everybody decides what they think is best for the community. If we continually grant variances, which they already have a variance for the signage they already have, and you're going to make it even larger, and based on what I figure, it's another 28% larger than what they have, but they already have a variance that makes them 3 times or 300% larger than what is allowed already, which is 40 square feet. And we have this plan for a reason. Many hours go into hearings of developing our community plan on where we want to go for the future. We're in the process of doing it right now. And there's no reason why this sign should be granted. It doesn't matter if it's a church, if it's a business. I don't care what's there. We can't keep granting variances. Otherwise, we no longer have a plan because everybody assumes they can I'll just get a variance. I'll just make my building taller, wider, more lit. As it is, I was at the surf rodeo last week, and the problem now is that when you look back, you don't see the mountains from the beach anymore. All you see is these big boxy condos over on that side of the beach. So we should put some big signs out there too also. And symmetry is a bunch of no reason for a variance. If there's a public safety need for that variance, or it enhances the community, I see why we do it. But there is none. There's no good reason, and it should not be granted. The community has spoken. You have paid speakers here. You know what? I can go through all the charitable work I do. Every Thanksgiving, I cook turkey for 700 homeless people. There's lots of stuff. I work in a food bank. I donate my time to school. People who live in the community do just as much as whoever the church sent over to speak for them tonight. I yield back the rest of my time.
Larry Krogh, followed by Michael Bennett.
Thank you. I'm here as a business owner and a building owner in Ventura. And to me, as far as somebody's following regulations with a commercial building, to me, they follow the guidelines, then that's all that should really be followed. I had some issues bringing my building in through Ventura. I followed the guidelines. Those guidelines kept shifting on me, and I did not like having that happen to myself. So just as regardless of church, whatever's in this space, to me, if they're following the guidelines, then to me that should be fine. Thank you.
Michael Bennett, followed by Carolyn Berg.
Hi, my name is Mike Bennett. I'm a local business owner, and I've been lived in Ojai and Ventura and Camarillo for the last 60 years. I currently have a business in Camarillo off Aviator. We're about to do some signage, and they're a little more flexible with our signage. We're right off the freeway. To me, it doesn't matter what your business is, as long as you're following the guidelines that the city has put in place, that I think that should be acceptable no matter what you're doing. So I believe that if their variance is within the city's guidelines, I think it should be permitted. Thank you.
Carolyn Berg, followed by Tom Burton.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Berg, and I've been a business owner in Ventura for 40 years. 3.5 years ago, we moved into a new office, and we were aware of what our signs could be. And the Scientology has already been given a variance, and they shouldn't I don't think any business or church or whatever should keep getting variances. It's only 2 years old. And if somebody has a problem finding it, then they're not following Google, as has been mentioned before. So I think they should follow all the guidelines that everybody else is expected to follow. They probably knew what they were when they were moving in, and it's only been a couple of years. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Tom Burton. Tom Burton, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute yourself. Okay, Tom, you should be able to unmute yourself and you're able to speak.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Tom Burton. I am a longtime parishioner, and I'll just keep this really quick because I think most everybody has covered a lot of the salient points. But one of the key things that has been brought up, and I completely agree with, is the congruency and the symmetry of the signage. And if you really look at that building at night, especially from across the road or even from the freeway, the west building without the congruent sign looks a lot darker. And it's in some cases, it's hard to tell that it's all part of the same building. And somebody also pointed out, that potentially a safety issue or anything like that by that back building, and there's a big parking lot and other things back there. We've had situations in the past where we've had people, come back there and had some vandalism and things like that because those buildings, it doesn't quite look like it's still attached and it's still part of the congruency there. So I as long as the everything is within the guidelines and everything that everybody's brought up, I am a big, strong proponent of making that congruency and also just the overall aesthetics makes the building really stick out and step. It's a beautiful building and it really makes it really look that much more aesthetic in the area. So thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. And our final speaker is Stephen. Mr. Director, Stephen has noted in the chat that he is unable to speak. He has shared a message here. Would you like for me to read that message? Okay, so I will go ahead and start the timer, and I will read Stephen's message. Okay, I am against the Church of Scientology has requested another sign variance to increase the size of their signs on, my apologies, just give me 1 second. On 2 of their buildings, they will be lit up and 4 times the size of what is allowed by code. Ventura has a sign ordinance with very clear objective standards. When variances are continually granted, each applicant thinks they can ask for a bigger and brighter. It's bad precedent. And that is Stephen's comments. Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Director, that concludes our public speakers.
Thank you very much. Could the project architect come back to answer a couple questions? And if you have a ballpark number of
I have an exact. It's 42.73 square feet.
Are you saying, explain what is 42 point?
The sign that we're proposing is 24 inches by 21 feet, 4 7/16 inches is the area of the sign, which is 42.73 square feet.
So staff, while I ask the rest of these questions, if you could do the best you can as to trying to ascertain what the total amount would be.
Can we, for clarification, the total amount of proposed signage under the new calculation is what?
I wrote 42.73 square feet is the size of each of the Scientology word signs.
Yeah. So we would like some clarification on the existing sign. We looked at the approved sign program, and it was approved with 2 feet 4 inches, similar to what is represented in the plans for the proposed signage. So if the applicant can provide some clarification on what the size of the existing signage is, we can also provide some detail on what the total proposed signage will be.
Yeah, the existing sign, as I just mentioned, was 24 inches by 21 feet 4 7/16. And that was a condition of approval on the previous variance from the city to reduce the sign height from 2 foot 4 inches to 24 inches. And as the director mentioned earlier correctly, that also affected its length.
So if I'm reading this right, and staff or applicant, please chime in. The plan before us shows that the signage area of the Scientology word on the plans is 56 square feet, times 2 is 112. And what you're saying is that it's actually 42.73 square feet each. Times 2 would be the total size of the Scientology part of the signs.
Correct.
So
which is 85.47 square feet, not 112.
So if my rough math is right, this variance is now 8.5 square feet?
That's what my calculations are coming to as well.
Okay. One other question I have is the DRC action from 2019 also said to reduce the symbols by 15%?
Correct, which we did.
And that's another thing where the plan you have for this variance has the same dimensions as the plan from 2019. So that calls into question, what's the actual size of the signs that were put up? And then that's not going to be something that I believe you're going to be able to answer at this meeting, because being able to calculate 2 foot 4 inches versus 24 and do the math on the proportionality is something that can be done in the seat. Do you think you can answer the question of what the actual area of the signs of the symbols are?
Yes.
Okay. Please do.
We have 24 inches. Give me just a second, please.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can give you an answer right now. I have the shop drawings. They indicate some dimensions, but it appears that there's still some missing. I would have to do some more calculations.
Okay. Thank you.
I could provide that easily to you. Not at the moment.
At a later date. Understood.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Except I do want to provide the applicant with a chance to respond to any of the public comments.
Yes. In terms of the lighting output on the signage, these each letter has a series of modules. They're LED modules that are about 2.5 inches in length. And each module has a rating of, I believe it's 40 lumens. The biggest letter is the letter N, which has 11 of these modules. So altogether, 11 times 4, it's 440 lumens. A 40-watt light bulb has 450 lumens. Most of the letters have 9 modules, some have 6, depending on the letter configuration. So in terms of lighting output, we're talking about a series of 40-watt light bulbs in terms of the output, and those are directed to the face of the sign and not outwards or downwards or upwards. Again, we feel strongly, and some have mentioned they felt it was nonsense, that we're not providing, or Symmetry is not providing a great answer for this building. We feel strongly that it does. The word Scientology on the one wing is pretty significant and strong in its language, and not to have it on the other wing just breaks that symmetry. And for this type of building, it's very strongly symmetrical. Putting on the center portion wouldn't work, it's too low, and it's also stepped back from the other wings. So while that solves the symmetry issue, it doesn't solve the visibility and identity issue. I think also this building is a little bit different than a commercial building, that it is an institution, and not having clarity on both sides of the building doesn't really lend itself to being a prominent identifier. We feel that the size of the signs is appropriate for the location that it's in. These are sort of so-called 65-mile-an-hour signs, so they're larger, they're quickly visible to traffic, and it's not so much about wayfinding, it's about identity. And I think you've heard from some of the public testimony that the church parishioners are very proud of what they do and who they are, and they want to be identified for that and recognized. And their place of worship should be a clear indicator of what it is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Gilly?
Yes.
We would just like to add, we were able to look up the original building permit for the existing signage, and it does measure at 24 inches tall.
The building permits do?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing and just cut to the chase. I don't have enough certainty or information to be able to make the findings to approve this variance at this time. Well, let me reopen the public hearing to let the applicant answer this question. Would you be agreeable to going back, verifying all the dimensions and such, correcting the plans accordingly to make sure we have all the right numbers in all the right spots?
Absolutely. While I was struggling earlier, I do have the shop drawings that show a 15% decrease in the height on the symbols, but I just don't have that area calculation.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay.
So what I would like you to do is to basically update the plans to reflect what was actually installed. If possible, given the fact that of the tremendous amount of written comments this item got, to the point where in my limited time here, I don't know of another project in the city that has gotten this many comments. Now, my estimate, this isn't an exact count, I'd say 2/3 of the comments that that are are posted are opposed, and about a third are in support. So it's not that everybody is opposed to this, but it's a lot of comments. There's a lot of concerns. So I would like you to update the plans. Would also like you to confirm that what was installed is 24-inch height for the Scientology word, that the symbols were reduced by 15%. And the third, not recommendation, because at that point DRC took final action, the third condition was that the LEDs were supposed to be 2,700 kelvins. So if you could verify basically that the DRC action was implemented, then again, as part of updating the plans, this is going to change all the math. When I first noted that if the Scientology signs are smaller, then the variance you're asking for is smaller, I forgot that the 157 you're asking for now, staff compared to 122. The 122 does not reflect the 24-inch sign or the 15% smaller. So that 122 might be 100 that DRC approved in 2019, which makes the amount you're asking for probably about the same as what we put in the staff report, but the two numbers are likely going to be different. If there is, let's see, so iron out the actuals so that when we come back to a future hearing, everybody can know what the real numbers are. I do want to note that the zoning ordinance regulation that says an office building is limited to 40 square feet, like most of our sign code, is from 1971. The world is a little different, and the city has approved quite a few sign variances. The DRC approved sign variances for quite a few office buildings to exceed 40 square feet. So I think the precedent is set, and I do not believe it's inappropriate in this case for the applicant to ask for more than 40. Whether the amount you're asking for is appropriate is we'll see at the next meeting when we have all the accurate numbers. Given the concern with from the public, anything you can do to avoid or reduce the extent of the variance, I would encourage you to look into, but you have the right to apply, and this is important for all parties to know. Any owner has the right to apply for a variance. There's been some people who said, why is the city even doing this? Every owner can apply for a variance. We have a hearing so that we can get input from all parties and then make a decision. So I'm going to continue it to a date uncertain because not only will the applicant have to get something to staff, staff will then have to redo all the numbers. Well, let me step back. We plan to cancel August 11th. We do plan to have the second meeting in August.
Yes, it'll be August 25th.
August 25th. 1 month does seem like enough time if the applicant can get the information to staff in the next 10 days. I will continue this meeting to August 25th. And I do appreciate everybody who has participated. I very much appreciate how being on completely different sides of the issue, you allowed everybody to speak and make their comments in a respectful manner. I'm continuing this item, as I said, to August 25th, and that will conclude this agenda item. Going back, I also again appreciate everybody allowing me to move up those smaller, well, smaller is a relative term, those other items that didn't have public concern so that they could be completed. So I appreciate that. With that, we move to the staff communications part of the agenda. Are there any staff communications?
It was just mentioned, but just that we will be canceling the August 11th director's hearing, and the next director's hearing will be August 25th. That is all.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody, staff, Mr. City Clerk, and all the speakers and applicants, and we are adjourned.